All right. Thank you for doing this with us. We really appreciate it.
You bet.
Okay, so I've got a list of questions, and so we'll just get started. Let me uncover my list of questions.
Okay.
And then, we can go anywhere you want from there. I mean, we don't have to follow it exactly, it's just a recommended list. Are you getting feedback? I'm getting feedback.
Pardon me?
I'm getting feedback. Are you getting feedback?
Nope, I'm good on this end.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start. My
Okay.
name is Donna Zedler, and today I am interviewing Richard Schwalbe of Integrity Investments. I'm conducting this interview on August 21st, 2018, in Kennesaw, Georgia, via FaceTime from Brookfield, Wisconsin, for my History of United States 360 class, American Entrepreneurship, Instructor Feld's section. Rick, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today about your experiences as an entrepreneur. We really appreciate it. And just so that we can make clear our relationship, you're my husband's uncle, and we enjoy
That's right.
spending time with you. And actually, this is the second family interview I've done for the history program, so that's really exciting that I can bring our family into my studies. So, thanks for taking the time with me today to talk about your experience as an entrepreneur. Can you tell me about your company, when it was founded, and what the core of your operations is?
I started the company 24 years ago. We manage apartment buildings for our clients and for our own portfolio.
That's terrific. Are you a sole owner, or do you have partners?
I'm a sole owner of this.
Very good. Your company is a corporation, yes?
Yes,
Okay. When was it founded? Was that 24 years ago? When did you incorporate?
correct. 24 years ago.
Wow, that's terrific. What was the process to go through to incorporate your business?
Relatively simple. I did everything online. It really wasn't too complicated. Met with an accountant.
Yeah, so a matter of
Made sure I was
paperwork.
setting some things up correctly.
Very good. Is that in Wisconsin? Are you only incorporated in Wisconsin?
Correct.
Okay.
Only in Wisconsin.
Very good. What are the requirements to maintain your incorporation through the state?
Not a whole lot. Relatively simple.
Yeah.
It's mostly an accounting function as I see it.
Very good. As far as your background, what sort of work did you do before you started Integrity?
After college, I began in residential real estate sales. Uh, After doing that for a little bit, I recognized opportunities to invest in real estate myself. And as my personal portfolio was growing, I had the opportunity to work with other investors who, quite frankly, had the cash but not the experience or the guts to manage their own apartment buildings.
Very good.
So they agreed to allow me to ride along with them on the properties they were purchasing. And my contribution was that I would do the day-to-day management.
Oh, that's terrific. Okay, so you found a niche. You found a place where you could be of service
Exactly.
to other people.
Found a passion.
That's terrific. That's a good thing to hear. Did you always know you wanted to work for yourself?
Pretty much so, yes. My dad was the sole proprietor, and from early on, I liked the opportunity to do little things that I could control and take advantage of.
Very good. Your business is property management, correct?
Correct.
How did you become interested in that altogether? Was that a function of your education, or?
In my real estate training for being a real estate salesperson, I was exposed to the concept of investing in real estate, and it seemed like a great opportunity for me. Seemed like something that I would be good at. Um, Seemed like it would be fun and exciting, and little by little, things grew from there.
That's terrific. What exactly does property management entail?
If an individual bought an apartment building and did not want any involvement whatsoever, they would put me in charge, and I would handle everything from renting the units, from hiring on site staff for showing apartments, collecting rent, maintaining the property, maintaining the grounds. They have to trust me that I'm handling their finances correctly, and I provide a monthly statement showing how the property is doing.
Terrific. So
And the idea is that they have no need to be involved whatsoever.
that's true. How do you find your people? Do they find you, or?
These days, it's pretty much on a referral basis. Initially, it was more, again, individuals who wanted to invest but didn't have the courage or the experience to do it on their own. And I showed them properties they could purchase. Many times it was on the condition that I would manage it for them.
Oh, that's really neat. Wow.
And lately it's been more just a referral of people who know that I have the business to do it, and they're happy to refer business to me.
That's terrific. Now, do you own properties of your own through the company, or do you?
Yes, I do. I
You
have a
do?
considerable number of apartments now.
Oh, that's terrific. So you
And
basically service your own.
the second part of it is that as long as we are managing other people's, I have the staff available to manage my own investment properties.
Okay,
It's because it's all about people. It's all
Yeah.
about having staff.
that's terrific. I want to get to that a little bit later in your staff as well. I've learned that an essential element of entrepreneurship is risk. And I know you've talked
Absolutely.
about people that don't have the know-how, and so you provide them, in a sense, less risk by relying on your expertise in what you do.
Yes, yeah, they feel more comfortable doing the investing, knowing that somebody, or at least feeling that somebody is going to take care of it for them.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I have to be willing to take a certain amount of risk in both setting up my business and investing in it. And
Right.
Yeah.
What sort of risk did you take when you started and grew your company?
initially, there's no fixed source of income. At the same time that I was starting a family, I was on 100% commission as a real estate salesperson. I had borrowed funds from any source that I could to use for down payment to purchase my own properties.
Yeah.
So the risk is that I'm not able to generate enough rent and keep the expenses low enough to have the cash flow to not only pay the business debt but also to support my family.
Right. Sure. Absolutely. What a brave thing. That's awesome. And it's worked for you, which is terrific.
It's worked out fine.
It's worked out just fine for you. How will assumption of risk pose new challenges to your business in the future?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
Assumption of risk. While we're talking about risk, how will the assumption
Yeah.
of risk pose new challenges to your business in the future as far as growth or expansion?
There is risk in that right now I'm about to hire another person. Hopefully I can trust that person.
Right.
They're going to be responsible for handling money. They're going to be responsible for correctly handling landlord-tenant issues.
Yeah.
If they make mistakes, there are numerous federal agencies that are making sure all fair housing laws are being followed correctly.
Yeah.
They would just love to get a hold of somebody who is discriminated against a protected class, whether it be race, religion, sexual orientation, source of income,
Right.
whatever. So if any of the people that I hire do make mistakes, I'm the person that would get sued by the federal government for a substantial amount of money.
Sure. So you have to provide them a lot of training.
Yes.
How do you do that? Do you do that on your own?
No, these days I have staff who assists in training the newer people, and we do take advantage of seminars. We do seek professional advice from attorneys, experts in the field,
Sure.
and a little bit of insurance to help mitigate the downside.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. I had never thought about all of those layers of
Oh,
people.
yeah.
Like you say, it's a people business, and it's people relying on people, and you relying on them.
Yes,
And then your responsibility to them as employees as well.
and I have 38 employees, and any one
Wow.
of them could screw things up big time.
That's true. That's true. Wow. That's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders.
Yeah.
That's terrific. terrific. How did you initially capitalize your business? Now, you talked about kind of extending and credit and kind of flying by that shoestring. Did you continue to work your full-time job while you started your business?
Yes, I did. I absolutely did. There were many times that I had an opportunity to take a small interest in a piece of real estate instead of a brokerage commission. There were times when I was literally forced to because there was not enough capital being invested in the property for the seller to get paid and for me to get paid a
Right.
commission. So it was a choice. Gee, would you be willing to take a part ownership in the property, 3, 4, 5% of a property,
Yeah.
or nothing?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's not much
So
of a
sometimes
choice.
it was a pretty easy decision. Yeah, so something is better than nothing.
Right. Right.
But other times it was, yeah, I could take an amount of cash, and you take the cash, you pay the taxes on it, you spend it. Whereas if you take an equity interest in a piece of real estate, um, if you're patient, take good care of it,
Yeah.
it takes good care of you later on.
Yeah, it's a seed. Yeah, it's really interesting. I've read of the countless long hours, and I'm sure you have put many, many hours into starting your venture and maintaining your venture. Tell me what your beginnings were like for you in terms of personal investment.
Well, quite honestly, I'd make it home for dinner most nights, but it was very common for me to go back into the office at 7 o'clock, 7:30, and work until 9:30.
Wow. Yeah.
Weekends, Sundays. Even to this day, I'll go in on an occasional Sunday morning just because it's quiet and I can catch up on paperwork, and
Sure.
I still enjoy it.
Sure. That's terrific. And over the years, I'm sure technology's been a help to you as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Things that we used to do by hand for accounting and record keeping, today
Yeah.
we are internet-based property management software.
Sure.
We're moving to a lot of scanned documents for storage, a lot less paper, a lot less file cabinet, a lot less personnel.
Right.
We are able to give computers to the on-site leasing staff, and they're able to access the software and do many of the things right on site that we used to have to do at the back office.
Right. I saw on your website as well that people can file applications for rental there and look at your properties. So that's interesting
Right.
as well, that you can connect with people from far away.
These days, a tenant can look for an apartment online. They can see videos of the apartment. They can make an application online. They can sign a lease online.
That's great.
They can pay their rent online. They can
Right.
submit maintenance requests online.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
definitely automation.
Yeah, you
It's
can file
helping us.
credit checks and things as well over the internet.
Absolutely.
Now, which,
Right.
Yeah, that really helps the ease of operation, I'm sure, but also adds another level of technology that you have to wade your way through. Do you have technological staff that help you?
Yes, my son-in-law, Patrick.
Aha, I was going to get to that.
Yeah. Recent addition. Where initially I was the techno guy for the company, he's taken that role on.
That's really great. I didn't know exactly what he did. That's terrific.
Yeah, no, he's done a lot to bring us into the current century.
Yeah. So speaking of staff, how long was it before you could start to hire staff to help you with your business?
The first person I hired 24 years ago is still with me today.
Yeah.
She was hired to literally sit at a small desk in the hallway outside of the office that I was using, and gave her an early Apple computer, and she did a lot of the bookkeeping when we were very small. She grew over the years into much more complicated roles, and today she's a vice president of the company, and she does much more than I do in terms of staying on top of things.
That's really great. From there, where did you grow? What sort of positions did you add?
Each time we took on another property, either through ownership, full or partial, or just a fee management contract with an investor, there are certain steps both in the main office. Each property, generally, you're going to have to pick up somebody. Smaller properties might be a very part-time person. bigger apartment communities can afford to have full-time staff. It was good when a couple of the properties were grouped together in the same geographic area, because then you could hire more full-time people who could be spread out amongst multiple properties.
Yeah.
Then step by step at the office, added another desk, added another person. We still really only run 3 people at the main office. We're managing about 1,500 apartment units out of about 20 checking accounts.
Wow. That's a lot to keep track
So
of.
we run pretty light at the main office.
Yeah.
But all told, we have about 35 people in the field. Maybe half of those are full-time and half are part-time.
Wow. And then your
It was just incremental step by step over the years.
yeah, growth.
Growth.
Yeah, growth and adaptation. Your
What
property
is the word? Organic growth?
organic growth. That's a good one. Your properties, they're across the state of Wisconsin? And also
They're
in Illinois?
throughout Wisconsin and northern Illinois.
Wow. I know the last time we saw you, you were delivering washers and dryers to your buildings and been out all day.
And that gave me an opportunity to both save a little bit of money in shipping costs and a reason to be on the property
Sure.
that I may not get to more than once every 2.5 months.
Right.
So it kind of forced me to see firsthand what's going on and stay in touch with the people. And yeah, it's good to have your feet on the ground once in a while and see what's going on.
Absolutely. Ultimately, you are responsible. So
Absolutely.
that's a great thing. But I liked that image of you in there taking the washers and dryers to all the people. I think that's terrific. That's really great. I know that along with being a successful businessman, you are a loving husband and a father and a
Do my
grandfather.
best.
Yeah,
I'm a
I know you
grandfather.
do a wonderful
6 times.
job. Yeah,
6 times over now.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
What specific values do you hold regarding work-life balance?
Well, it certainly is very important, and I hope that my employees recognize that while the job is important, they are not to be sacrificing any of their family life. I expect the same thing out of Patrick. I don't want him to not be home for his wife and family. I have a vested interest in that. So I do try to be very flexible with the staff. If they do need time off, we just make it happen. We just make do.
Sure.
Nothing at the office, nothing in the whole operation is so important that somebody can't have an afternoon off if they need it or
Right.
feel they need it.
Right. Yeah, I'm in management as well, and I tell my people, every one of you is a husband and a father and a wife and a mother.
Very good.
And when you go
Very
home,
good.
you need to have something left for those people. as well.
Exactly.
What about
Exactly.
yourself? What are your priorities as far as work-life balance?
Well, I do enjoy going to the office, but I certainly enjoy coming home. Financially, it isn't necessary that I be at the office 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. Some days I'm there 9 hours. Some days I take off altogether. A lot of times I'll cut out at 1 in the afternoon just because I can, and I'd rather come home and do something with Ann.
Yeah.
It's nice that I can take whatever time off I want, and everything is going to work out and everything's going to get done anyways.
Right. And then again, with technology, you can be reached anywhere that you are if there is
This is true.
a problem.
This is true.
Yeah, which is a blessing and a curse, but
Yeah.
very cool.
Fortunately, when I'm up in Rhinelander, I have selective phone reception,
Yes.
and that helps too.
Yeah, that's true. That makes perfect sense.
Caller ID is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it really is. If I don't recognize, I'm sorry, not picking up.
Yeah.
What are some of the ways?
Sometimes when I do recognize it, it's still too bad.
Yeah, well, sure enough. What are some of the ways in which being an entrepreneur affected your family's development? How did it differentiate your family?
Oh, I think that the kids grew up understanding the value of hard work and effort and opportunity. They understood that there is no free lunch. In this world, you tend to be paid exactly what you're worth. That's the good news. The bad news is you're also paid exactly what you're worth.
Yeah.
So I do believe that the kids learn that and would rather be independent as much as they can. Never looking for a handout on the job, never. I think they realize that the only job security you have is what you're able to make for yourself as an independent. And that if you're counting on a bigger company, it ain't gonna happen.
That's a good perspective.
It's
Yeah.
a lesson for you too.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And we're all making our way in the best way we know how. Did your children show an interest in following in your footsteps in your company?
Not so much, and I did not want to push it on them. In the early years, I did have to sacrifice time. I did have to bring worries home from the office. I didn't particularly want them to have to do the same things, and they didn't have a whole lot of interest in doing it. Justin is initially we thought that he was going to go into some business scenario. He had the common sense to eventually go into the medical profession where he felt that he could help people. Financially, it's a nice thing too, but really he at one point made the comment, if all I'm going to do is invent a faster cell phone, I'd just as soon kill myself and not be involved. I want to do something that's really going to help people, not just make more money in some little technological thing, even though he certainly has the ability that way. Amy went into social work because she wanted to help people. Now, Amy's husband, Patrick, really likes doing investment real estate management. So he is following in my footsteps. Hopefully I'm setting a good example for him and doing everything that I can to mentor him and bring him along slow enough and make sure that I try to instill upon him the understanding that it is not a get-rich-quick business, but a get-rich-slowly business. Something that he can live with and support the family.
Right.
And he's also considered something of an exit strategy for me.
That makes sense.
As I start checking out, I know that he's going to be there to carry on.
Well, he's an upstanding and good man, so you made a good choice.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We're very proud of
It's a
him.
good choice. Yeah, and a
I
good
think
dad.
Amy made a good choice.
I think
Yes.
she made a good choice as well. Yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Let's see. Aside from distance, as far as the spacing out of your properties, what are some of the challenges of running your business across state lines?
The state of Illinois is challenging to work with. Tax structure is higher, fees are higher, licensing and paperwork is much more of a nuisance in the state of Illinois than it is in Wisconsin. I have to file tax returns in 2 states. I have to pay estimated income tax in 2 states. And they just have different ways of handling things. So you have to be aware of state agencies there as opposed to here.
Right.
The distance is a problem. I do have friends who are several states away doing what I do. And there the distance is, my best friend in the business, Gary, has no interest in doing any out-of-state properties whatsoever anymore.
Sure.
Because he has to, if he's to visit a property, he literally has to take a plane flight to get down to, I don't know, somewhere in Georgia or Tennessee, whatever it might be.
Sure.
He is not able to stay in touch, even with electronic communication. Once again, there's no substitute for putting the boots on the ground once in a while
Yeah.
and seeing firsthand what's going on.
Right. So in your business distance.
Even though I am in a second state, it still is only 2.5 hours to that property. So it's not insurmountable for me to hop in the car and drive and be there
Yeah.
and still be home at the end of the day.
Right. Right, but it's interesting how the different regulations and paperwork and taxation could
Right.
preclude your
Right.
ability to operate in another state, or at least make it more difficult.
Right.
Very interesting. My next question was: is Illinois or Wisconsin a more hospitable business environment? It sounds like Wisconsin's a more hospitable business
Absolutely.
environment.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. State to state, there are huge differences. We've been looking at that ourselves, as far as how friendly states are to business and personal liberty.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
very
Yeah,
interesting.
definitely. Difference. Wisconsin and Illinois couldn't be much different.
Yeah,
They're so different in
very interesting. Well, Illinois is kind of
outlook and,
notorious for
pardon
having.
me?
Illinois is kind of notorious for its
Yeah.
laws and its taxation and being a very different place.
Yes.
Even though it's right
Yes.
over the border. You also have to hire people in Illinois, right?
That's right.
And that changes the perspective as well, I would think.
Yes, it does. And I'm dealing with unemployment compensation in 2 different states, payroll tax in 2 different states.
Right.
Fortunately, I do the payroll through Intuit software
Okay.
online, so I don't have to be as up to speed since they handle the payroll side of it for the Illinois workers.
Mm-hmm.
But I still have considerable amount of responsibilities in terms of filing paperwork.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting.
It would be nice if it were all in the same state, but
Yeah. Yeah.
you go where the opportunities are.
Yeah, cost benefit analysis. You have to
Mhm.
have to decide what's important to you. Well, let's talk about regulation. We're kind of already talking about regulation and how state and federal government regulations restrict or govern the way in which you do business.
It has more to do with licensing. I have to have entity licenses and fees paid in the state of Illinois that I don't have in Wisconsin. Interesting, we were putting a new roof on one of the buildings in Illinois, and they were trying to require me to hire an Illinois contractor, even though I brought some of my own workers down
Wow.
to the property. We found a loophole. We had to convince the local building inspector who was trying to shut the project down that because I owned the property and a full-time employee of mine from Wisconsin was doing the work, we didn't have to have an Illinois licensed contractor
Wow.
on site to watch us.
Wow.
That's just one example.
Right. Right. So that's differences between state. Do you also have federal government loopholes you have to jump through as far as fair housing and
Oh, absolutely. Fair housing regulations are scary, very scary. Yesterday we had a meeting with some of the other people who do the similar thing that I do. We meet at my office once a month, and one of the topics of discussion was actually comfort animals. That's the newest problem that we face. Literally, if you wanted to move into an apartment that didn't allow pets and you had a chicken that you wanted to bring in, you could go online, pay a $30 fee to a doctor, a quote doctor in a different state, many times Nevada, who would write you a letter saying you should have this chicken because it makes you feel happier and more comfortable and helps stabilize your emotional state.
Wow.
If we then wouldn't allow you to bring that chicken into our high-end apartment building, and it could be an ostrich, it could be a ferret, it could be anything, it could be a snake. If you have a letter from a supposed medical professional saying that you should be allowed to have a snake,
Wow.
we have to make sure that we give you the opportunity to have that snake. We're not supposed to charge you any additional security deposit. You can have a large dog.
Wow.
If your dog poops in the front yard, we can require that you pick it up and clean it up. And if you don't, we might be able to evict you. But doing so, we'd have to make sure we're dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's, or we might be subject to a several $100,000 fine from the federal government.
Oh my
And that's
goodness.
exactly another good friend that actually Jeremiah knows, Shane Murphy, was threatened with a $200,000 penalty after paying $10,000 in legal fees. He settled with the tenant, prospective tenant, who never even moved in, for roughly $10,000
Oh my goodness.
because that tenant wanted to bring some strange animal in.
Wow.
It used to be that we had to deal with discrimination, racial, that
Right.
if we didn't treat a minority couple with the exact same level of attention when they were looking for an apartment, we literally have to show them the same level of enthusiasm
Wow.
that we would a non-minority couple.
How do you quantify
Sexual
enthusiasm?
sexual preference.
Wow.
We're not allowed to say, "Hey, I'm sorry, the two of you can't live here," or maybe you'd be more comfortable living in that building over there. There are several other people more similar to you in sexual orientation. No, that I can't do
Yeah.
that.
Wow.
So race, religion, sexual orientation, and now comfort animals.
Holy cow.
It's
never
it's
ending.
just unnecessary.
And
Never ending.
that environment's getting worse and worse, I suspect, as well, because people's
Right.
demands are getting greater and greater on the protections that they want.
Right.
Wow.
Life is tough. Wear a helmet.
Yeah, that's rough. I don't know how you quantify enthusiasm.
Exactly.
It doesn't
I've been
make sense.
fortunate that I don't know that I've been selected for testing, that any of our properties or any of our staff. We have had issues where a maintenance man came back to an apartment building after a night of heavy drinking. He came back to shovel the sidewalks and make sure there was enough salt and sand on the AC sidewalks. He felt the need to relieve himself in a laundry tub, just as a young lady tenant happened to be walking around the corner and saw him doing what he had to do. The silly thing is, there was a vacant apartment in that building that he carried a master key for, but he didn't think of that. He thought he was doing us a favor by coming back at 9:30 at night to shovel the sidewalks. Now, that part of it he was. The rest of it, so we had to settle financially with that tenant.
Wow.
We've had maintenance men who got fresh with female tenants. We've had maintenance men who just behaved inappropriately.
Yeah, the human factor is a wild card.
And and also with other staff.
Wow. And
So,
then you get into
yeah,
sexual.
People are the biggest problem.
Yeah,
Definitely.
very interesting.
Between people and government regulations dealing with financing make it hard to get mortgage financing. Lenders are very gun shy and have to make sure they do more than adequate due diligence, check all of the boxes, document everything. Oh, it's a challenge,
Yeah.
but that's what makes it rewarding, is that if it were easy, anybody would be doing it and there wouldn't be any profit left in it.
It's how you navigate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
You get paid for doing what other people find distasteful or frightening,
Sure.
and that's true in any line of work.
And the fact is that those additional layers of regulation and worry you have to go through in the end translate to higher costs to the renter as well, because it translates into higher
Correct.
costs to you.
Correct.
So we don't realize the hidden costs of the regulations when we say there ought to be a law. We don't consider the repercussions.
Keep it simple.
Right.
Unintended consequences.
Unintended consequences, absolutely. Are there certain government impediments to your business? Well, it's kind of a dumb question, which you feel are critical to change. What would be your top of your list of things?
A more realistic approach to things like comfort animals.
Sure.
The building inspectors are doing their job, fire inspectors are doing their job. Sometimes you get the feeling that they're going above and beyond what they need to be doing, but they're important. Just the potential for lawsuits, it just doesn't need to be there. There's nothing There's nothing productive
Right. But
by
when,
making it so easy. You have a tenant who hasn't paid their rent for 2 months. You've served them with all the proper notices. You're asking the judge to evict them. All the tenant really has to say is, I expect a real trial because I believe that I did pay my rent and I'd like an opportunity to prove it, and their eviction gets put off 3 or 4 more weeks for a trial. Even if they don't show up at the trial, they've got another 3 or 4 weeks of living there for free.
wow.
If you don't follow all of the procedures very carefully when you're trying to evict a tenant for non-payment, you lose. You get nowhere.
Wow. Wow. So the onus is on you.
Mhm.
Yeah, those things should be changed. We live in a very litigious culture, period. And people
Definitely.
sure do like to take advantage.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
sorry
indeed.
for that. What about political cycles? Do you find that political cycles affect your ability to do business?
Yes. Regulation.
Yeah.
More regulations under some administrations, fewer. You get a sense for that. How well the economy is doing certainly has an effect on how successful you are in renting or raising rents and operating.
Right. Yeah, that was my next question is what sorts of economic conditions are most beneficial to your business?
The particular area of renting apartments, you like good times because people move out independently, start their own households. If times are too good and interest rates are too low, it's too easy for people to move out of apartments and buy houses, many times that they shouldn't be affording and aren't ready to own. So good times are good, but they can't be too good, otherwise
Yeah.
it goes the other direction.
Right, right. They're almost irresponsibly good.
Low interest rates make for better cash flow in owning an apartment building, but they also make it more attractive for tenants to move out and buy their own homes.
Sure, sure. How did the
And
economic,
when
the downturn of 2008 would be relevant? How did that affect your ability?
it was, in some cases, when people were losing their jobs or afraid of losing their jobs, there was a lot of doubling up.
Okay.
So instead of people moving out on their own, they were doubling up,
Wow.
which meant less demand.
Yeah, sure. And more
For
wear and
apartments.
tear and so many more
Yeah.
incidentals to you.
From the property management angle, we had to deal with more vacancies. We had to be more creative in marketing. We had to give concessions in rent. On the other hand, when cycles are too good, like they are right now, there are too many apartment buildings being built, so supply is getting out of hand in some marketplaces. Right now, times are so good, interest rates are so low, everybody is building. I think that there's going to be an oversupply in many markets of housing stock. And when things do get tougher, as they will, it will be interesting to see how some of these very expensive new apartment buildings are able to maintain their high rents.
Yeah.
Hopefully that won't be a trickle down. They'll have to start giving more concessions.
Right.
And where most of my housing stock is in the lower price range, hopefully the expensive people don't lower their rents, so the middle range don't lower their rents. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
it could cascade all the way down.
Right. The snowball effect.
The other problem we're having right now is finding staff. It's nearly impossible to find workers.
Wow. As far as maintenance and that sort of thing.
Maintenance and management, on-site managers, everybody. The state of Wisconsin has an unemployment rate below 3%,
Yeah.
which is literally full employment.
Right. Right.
So anybody who wants a job has a job.
Wow. Okay.
And the trick is to keep the people that you have, but filling an opening today is very, very difficult.
Wow. That's really interesting. I'd never thought about it that way. As far as organizations that you're a part of, you mentioned that you have like-minded business people at your office having meetings. Are there other pro-business organizations that you work with?
Yes, there are realtor organizations that offer meeting opportunities. Uh, I've grouped together several professionals in my office building who are technically my competitors, but we're not playing in the same sandbox. We're not really stepping on each other's toes, but we are experiencing all of the same problems, so we help solve each other's problems.
Yeah.
It's not competition.
Right.
Very seldom is it competition. It's just getting a good handle on what's going on in the market.
Knowing your market, which
Knowing the market,
is
yeah,
local, you really need to know what's going on in your particular
definitely. Although
region.
some of the problems are universal.
Yeah.
And the financing problems, the tenant problems, the legal problems,
Right.
they're universal.
Right.
So whether Gary is doing a property in Georgia or I'm doing something in Illinois or Wisconsin, some of the problems are universal.
Okay. Communication.
And
as much communication.
hearing how my counterparts are solving those problems helps me.
Yeah. That's really
I'd
important.
like to think I help them too.
It probably helps offload some stress as well to understand.
Sure, it doesn't hurt to cry on somebody else's shoulder.
Yeah, absolutely. Entrepreneurs are people who certainly seek a profit from their endeavors. Profit's an integral part of
Right.
entrepreneurship. However, they also put themselves at the service of society. So how
Right.
do you see your business as a service to society?
Well, I'd like to say there are some great altruistic goal that I'm trying to achieve, other than make a good income and enjoy what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm making housing available, but basically, I'm doing it for the money and because I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm not serving any great public need.
But along the way, you're employing people.
I'm definitely employing
And
people,
you're providing a
I'm
positive work environment.
providing nice, clean, safe places to live.
Right.
My goal is not to go out and find a home for every homeless person. I'm sorry. That's
No.
not my motivation. That's not
No.
why I'm doing this.
No, and I don't think that that's what society asks of you either.
I'll donate to charities who help do that.
Right.
And I'm glad there are people who are willing to wear that hat and take,
Mhm.
carry that cross, but no, I'm not.
Right.
That's not why I'm an entrepreneur.
Right. No, absolutely. But you do provide a service. I mean,
Yeah.
the people who have lived in your buildings and found you to be, even just having a fair business partner when you're
And
renting.
yes, and investors who have trouble running their own property.
Right.
Sure.
So those are all services, and you're creating a mini
Right.
economy of a sense.
Right.
And that's an important contribution. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's my opinion. What sorts of unique opportunities do you think you've had access to as a successful entrepreneur that you think are valuable to talk about? What sorts of things have you been able to do?
Oh, I guess the fact that my father was in construction, I have a better understanding of the nuts and bolts of real estate. The fact that my mother did work as a real estate salesperson created an interest in that. Dad built a few spec houses. Mom sold them. I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah.
I was able to take properties that were in poor condition and fix them up, make them more attractive, because I had a little understanding of it. I enjoy working with people. I enjoy talking. So that's an opportunity. Everything just kind of fell into place and seemed very natural.
Like you say, it's a passion.
It's passion, yes.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to do something that you have a passion for.
Yeah.
There's no drudgery when you go to work.
Right.
I'm not saying there aren't times when you wish you didn't have to deal with something, but all in all,
Yeah,
all in all, it's fine.
that's wonderful. Yeah.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
I agree. I understand that because my passion for history, when I'm in my classes and when I'm doing what I do, it comes together. You know you're doing the right thing. So that's terrific.
Good.
Okay, so do you have any upcoming projects or exciting future plans through Integrity right now?
Oh, not particularly. We took on another 64 family just this week for management. It's one of the newer, nicer, more expensive properties we've ever managed. So that'll be a challenge that we haven't faced before. I do want Pat to take on more and more of the responsibility so that I can play more and worry less. Keep doing what we're doing, maybe continue to get into nicer properties, and make sure that I'm taking more time off and enjoying the fruits of 40 years in the same industry.
Yeah, next phase, right?
Yeah,
And you've got
exactly.
someone responsible and helpful that can help you do that. So,
Spend more time with the grandchildren.
yeah, that's very, very good. Well, I really appreciate you talking to me. My
This was
last
fun.
question for you is, I'm sure you think
Okay.
about what sort of business person that you are and that you want to be. What personal values do you think are critical in an entrepreneur?
Work ethic, integrity, commitment, passion, all of those. Without any of that, you need it all.
Yeah.
Understanding that it is a long-term thing, not a short-term. Understanding that by giving other people everything that they want, you're going to end up getting everything that you want. And that's really true, that if you make your life to give people what they want, you'll be rewarded.
I agree with that.
It's neat the way it works that way.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. That's a customer service philosophy that goes a long way.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so very much for talking to me, and I learned a lot more about what you do and have a lot of respect for you, and I appreciate you talking to me.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to stop the recording. Hang on.